What did you learn as acting chief during the past 10 months that will serve you well now as Milwaukee's full-time permanent chief, the 19th police chief over the past 166 years?
Being present and being communicative. You don't know how to serve properly if you don't have relationships. Understanding that you have to be there to listen, to engage. Like I said many times before, I understand we have trust in many parts of our community, somewhat trust in some, and no trust in others. We need to be available for all. And understanding that lift and being able to embrace it and continue that work, I'm definitely committed to that.
One of the commissioners last night said the one thing that puts you ahead of the pack was that you care. Give me an example of how you care.
I was at a fatherhood meeting where they had a 13-week training for those who have challenges over the years, older gentlemen at a church, El Bethel. They never saw a chief there to support and to be part of that dialogue. It was nothing to have cameras at. It was about being a part of the community, showing you care, and being able to hear the stories of those who are overcoming adversity, who are changing their lives and witnessing that.
Which leads into my next question. Being a student of criminal justice, you know that the core values of community-oriented policing date back to 1829, Sir Robert Peel. What is your vision of effective community-oriented policing?
Being so present that is commonplace. Not that it has to be a surprise and say, I'm not used to seeing the police here. I'm always asked about what is going to be my legacy. My legacy is that we are everywhere that we need to be, building those relationships, continue those relationships that is so commonplace. It's just part of the routine day-to-day experiences of being a better community.
Community engagement certainly is at the center of your crime reduction strategy. How do you get different constituencies, you know, the Common Council, FPC, the police union, and community groups to move in the same direction? How do you get them on board?
Well, for one, it's not really my responsibility to say this is the walking orders, but it is to be embracing a collaborative approach, ensuring that they see us as part of a solution, problem solving, and not being us versus them. Again, being normal, that we're interacting on a regular basis, and that we are being truly genuine and being part of this collaborative process. Understanding we all have a role in public safety. Community engagement goes to the heart of understanding how to serve and how best to serve. So it's important for them to understand that this is not just a, catchy phrase or, a one-hit wonder. This is the way we operate. This is the way we shall operate under my leadership, and that hopefully it becomes infectious, that we all want to join on board because we understand what the goal, what the vision is.
Can you name an example of how a partnership is showing results here in Milwaukee?
Oh my goodness, where do I start? I mean, you look at near West Side partnership, where you have a collaboration between public and private and the police involved in regards to not only building sustainability within a community, and that's beyond under the direction of Executive Director Keith Stanley, but you're bringing in CEOs of these Fortune 500 companies, you're bringing in community stakeholders, you're bringing in the public, private, the police. Great things are happening over near West Side, but that's just one of many. West, I mean, you got a number of different pockets of just strength and dedication. It's really appreciative to be part of these collaborations, to be part of these, movements of positivity, to be part of change. So the police department, unfortunately, have not had a great history of being true partners. My input in this is that I've always been a part of a lot of these great type of collaborations. I'm just taking it to another level.
Chief, there's been a lot of talk about defunding, reimagining police departments. Do you bristle at such conversations, or is it something you feel is worth listening to?
Well, you just sound like a leading question there. Absolutely, I lead into. I look at it from the standpoint we should never be too tied to anything in regards to our particular new efforts. We are responsible for the finite sums that come from our taxpayers. We are expected to be efficient and effective. There are things that are not in our wheelhouse when it comes to certain type of ills in our particular community. And when we start talking about, who best served, the police department should be part of those conversations. So when we talk about defunding or reimagining, I'm not afraid of those words, but I also challenge those words that is more than just words. What is the plan? What is the outcomes? We all know that certain things sound great, but can it be evidence-based? Does it show that this is the right type of effort to put forth? Because until those answers can be answered, in the meantime, it's the police responsibility until said otherwise. So it's a balancing act of having those conversations, but understanding the reality of it, and how do we move forward, making sure that we're open to new ideas, but who do we hand the baton over, or how do we pass on those responsibilities?
You were peppered with questions for about 5 hours during 3 different public forums from community members. Some people visibly angry, and understandably so, as they see their neighborhoods and communities torn apart by violent crime. What really stood out during those conversations with members, those Q&A sessions?
Passion, frustration. To have someone show up and express really says a lot. So we as a department have to listen. We have to embrace in regards to what are those concerns and internalize how do we help what's in our wheelhouse. Too often, just because it's thrown at you, just because you're caught, doesn't mean that's your responsibility. Can we be part of the solution process? Absolutely. But what we tend to forget, our main wheelhouse is law enforcement. When we talk about the violence, we talk about the reckless driving, absolutely. That is where we are to put the rubber meets the road. But on the flip side, we also have a number of different government services. We have a number of different community services that can be just as effective. So I know one community member talking about, do you embrace problem-solving policing? Absolutely. Coming into it where we look at the problem, see what can we do in regards to our resources to solve or to have that impact, the police should be a part of those conversations.
You touched on reckless driving. Milwaukee and other big cities are dealing with an epidemic of reckless driving and stolen cars. You drive the streets of Milwaukee every day, but you're also a dad with a couple of teenagers who soon will be getting behind the wheel. What can the MPD under your leadership do to make those streets safer, not only for your kids, but everyone who drives streets in the city of Milwaukee?
So we talk about this ad nauseum in regards to what the MPD or Milwaukee Police Department responsibility, the 3 E's, engineering, education, enforcement. Obviously the enforcement is our wheelhouse. Being present, initiating the traffic safety unit back in February 2021, and I love to see that expanded, and I hope to have that expanded under my leadership. But also understanding being part of education. When we talk about kids, yes, I do have a son, soon to be. It's part of my responsibility to educate my son the rules of the road. Being cooperative in regards to the MPS brought back driver's ed. See what we can do to expand and help out with that training. Because we all know you have to be able to be taught right to be able to act right. Also work with our community stakeholders. I know there's a number of different community stakeholders. Urban Rebels are out there being engaged in impacting reckless driving, talking about the ills and the dangers of it. But part of engineering. Can we be also responsive, talking to our partners in government in regards to the Department of Public Works, making streets safer, seeing what type of road dice we can change, speed humps, turnarounds. So we understand our role in this particular dealing with this crisis. And we are partners. Again, community engagement is not just lollipops and ice cream cones, but partners with our government partners, Department of Public Works or some other DOT, but also our community partners. Understand that there's so many different ways to address the challenges beyond just being a police thing.
Not only is Milwaukee on pace to break last year's record number of homicides, but the number of murders solved is below 50%. You've been with MPD 25 years. You know that this community used to boast one of the highest murder clearance rates in the country. What is being done to not only find those who are responsible for committing homicide so that they don't commit again, but prevent future homicides?
Absolutely. I was on the homicide unit when we had over a 90% clearance rate, but we also did not have the capacity issues that we're seeing now. So working with our federal partners, we have task force. We work with our community partners, Office of Violence Prevention in regards to being ahead of the retaliatory behaviors out there. They're being involved in, ER rooms where we know that retaliatory behavior comes most at a critical level right after an incident. Understanding, again, being part of, a lot of different collaborative approaches with the DA's office, MFD for the VR-FAST, the Violence Reduction and Public Health and Safety Team. Understanding that some of those things generate crime, meaning that if you're not dealing with poverty, you're not dealing with the unemployment, or you're dealing with illiteracy, that you can see the outcome of that neglect. So what's important is that we're part of these teams, part of these collaborations. Again, I come back to community engagement is more than just ice cream. This is where you are identifying partners to figure out what you can collectively do to create impact and be able to turn the tide. Even though we have higher numbers for 2021, our numbers are going down. We have not seen as much as the reduction we'd like to see, but we see that there are things working out there, working together with our partners, whether it's the public health or the federal partners, getting individuals off the streets and making them accountable, more investigations, building up our investigation teams, understanding the technology behind it. We have the NIBIS machine where we're looking at, casings in regards to connecting crimes, bringing in more of the technology aspect of, looking at phones and whatnot that are driving some of these unfortunate narratives of violence. So it's a all hands on deck. You understand that there is an enforcement aspect of it where we are looking for those who are creating the most type of impact of violence in the community, what we call high value targets. But you also understand that there's a prevention aspect of it, but also supporting those particular programs that help people reacclimate themselves coming back into the community. When we talk about reentry, making efforts to have those individuals coming back to be successful. That there's not a desire to look at criminal behavior as that outcome of a lifestyle. But we have to be a part of those. And I'm glad to be a part of those. And we want to do more of those. And we shall do more of those.
Obviously, there have been a number of officer-involved incidents locally and across the country that, justified or not, have eroded some of that trust between police and some members of the community. What steps are being taken so that officers can do a better job at communicating and connecting with people?
So when we are talking about de-escalation, that is part of understanding you have to verbalize, you have to be able to communicate more to be able to turn it down. Understand there's a lot of different trainings that we need to embrace to push forth, but also to remind. But again, when you talk about, I hate to be, a broken record, but community engagement, knowing your public, interacting with your public outside of a crisis or emergency gives you a better understanding who you're serving. That you can see them as humans, but they also can see you as humans. So when we have a proactive community engagement strategy of being intentional, of being in all these spaces, whether it's our national night outs, or maybe there might be some type of graduation. I know as a former district commander, we adopted a school. And we're in that school for, Black History Month program, or, bringing presents to the kids, seeing them in a different light than being at a responding call where there is some type of danger or some type of crisis where that's not the best way to meet. So being intentional in these engagements, having those experiences, it's a win-win situation. Our public sees us in a different light, and we as officers see our public in a different light.
When playing cops and robbers as a kid, I read you always wanted to be the cop. This is your dream job, top cop in your hometown.
Look at you trying to get a reaction out of me. Look at you.
This is your first day on the job. On your last day, whenever that might be, what kind of Milwaukee, what dreams do you have? What kind of Milwaukee do you hope to turn over to the next chief of police?
Our children is in a better place than what we found them in regards to this crisis that we're dealing with right now. And that we are part of our fabric of community in a normal, everyday, the police are here again. great to see you. That it's commonplace rather than a surprise.